Hi, this is Shalimar Steinberg, and today I am talking about object snaps, and they are located down here on the toolbar. And if you look at this one right here, which looks like an angle, it is for object snap tracking. And what that means is that if you have your object snaps turned on for midpoints and endpoints of lines, etc., then anytime that you're in a command, say I want to add a line, and I want to add it so that it is based off of this corner and this corner, so kind of parallel to this line, but I don't want it actually touching them, I can go into the line command and I can hover without touching or without clicking on this edge, and then I can drag up away from it and click where I want to along that line. And so, for example, I could click here, then I could go down to this one and drag up from it the same distance, assuming that I remember what that distance was, or I could type a specific distance or angle that I want, and then I could click. And so I would be able to use that green dotted tracking line in order to line things up. It can also be really helpful, for example, if you want to line something up from the center of a circle, or if you have a top, front, and side view of the same object all drawn on the screen and you want to transfer any information from one view to another, you can use those tracking lines to drag over from them. The only thing to remember is that you do have to be in one of the drawing commands in order to use those tracking lines, or one of the modify commands. Now next to that is the square with another square in the corner. This is the actual object snaps that you can choose from. So if it is highlighted in blue, that means the object snaps are turned on. If it is white, it means that they're turned off, and you just change that by clicking directly on it. However, if you want to control which object snaps are on, you click on the arrow next to it, and you see that there's a big list of options. So endpoint is going to allow you to snap directly to the endpoint of a line, any line in your drawings. Midpoint is going to allow you to snap to the center of any line segment. Center is going to allow you to snap to the center of any circle. Geometric center will allow you to snap to the center of any polygon or rectangle, as long as it is a polyline. Node will allow you to snap to a point if you create a point in your drawing. Quadrant lets you go to the 90-degree angle points on a circle. Extension allows you to snap to a line that you extend out. Insertion allows you to snap to lines that are from blocks, which are small drawings that can be inserted into your main drawing. We'll get into those later in the term. Perpendicular, for example, allows you to go in, and I can go to this line and I can go along it, and I have to zoom in a little bit because the other OSNAPs are wanting to dominate, so I actually need to turn those off for a second. And some of them will try to overtake other ones. So if I have perpendicular on, then you can see there's this little triangle with the right angle symbol in the corner of it, and I can drag it along this line to where I want, and then click, and any line that I drag out will be a 90-degree angle to that line. The next one that we have is tangent, and so what this means is that I can draw a circle that is going to touch in exactly one spot some other object. If I have that turned on. And then nearest will simply allow me to snap to the nearest point on whatever object I'm closest to. Apparent intersection takes place with three-dimensional drawings. And so in a two-dimensional drawing, the lines either are crossing each other or not on the same plane, because the X and the Y are horizontal or vertical. However, if you add a z-axis, which is coming towards you to create depth, that gives you 3 dimensions, and it sometimes happens that while from one view it looks like two lines cross over each other horizontally and vertically, if you then rotate them on the z-axis, you might see that there's a height gap in between them. However, this tool allows you to snap to that apparent intersection where they would meet. We don't use it typically in this class because we're doing 2D AutoCAD. And finally, you can snap to a line that you want to create parallel to another point. All right, so if you also click on this Object Snap Settings here, you can see the main manager for these tools. The nice thing about this is that it shows you the shape that the individual snaps will take on. So for example, when you're snapping to the endpoint of a line, there will always be a green box visible. When you're snapping to the midpoint, there will be a green triangle visible. When you're snapping to the center point, there will be a green circle, and so forth. So if I turn on endpoint and midpoint, I can show you those. So if I get into my line command here, when I hover over this line, you'll see that there's that green box on the endpoint, so I could snap to that spot. If I hover here, you'll see the green triangle. That means I could snap to the midpoint. If I hover over the circle, you'll see the center light up there, and I could snap to that center point now. The reason that object snaps are important is because if you don't have them turned on, so for example, I turn them all off, and I go in, and I don't have object snap tracking on either, when I want to attach a line to this line, I can get to what I think is the exact end there and draw off, and from being this zoomed out it looks like it is, but if I zoom in you see that there's almost always a gap depending on how far in you zoom. And so with the snap it guarantees that you are actually attached to that point. Alright, so that is the benefits of object snaps, and we will be using them throughout the term in a lot of ways. So if you look on the Moodle page for this week, you will see that there are 4 practice exercises. And I will go ahead and open one of those up for you just so you can get an idea of how they work. So if we are on the Moodle page here, and say I open up number 1 here, and it's going to download in Google, and I can open it in AutoCAD. And then basically it's set up so that I can use the line command, and for each one I'm going to turn on usually only the specific one that it asks for. So I would turn off all the other ones and just have endpoint turned on. You can have several at once, but it works easier if you just have one at a time for this exercise. Then I would go into my line command, and using the green endpoint boxes I would attach the parts of the drawing in order to match the ones that are in this example. So for the next one I would use the midpoint in order to attach to the midpoints of the purple lines. Then on this one I would be using the centers of the circles and the quadrants of the circles on this one to attach to all the edges, the intersections where these purple lines are meeting, and so forth. And then nearest, nodes, tangents, and perpendiculars. Alright, so there are 4 sets of these, and they each utilize the OSNAPS in different ways. You are not required to turn these in for grading at all. They are merely for your practice, but I would recommend that you do at least a couple of them because it is a skill that you're going to use a lot throughout the term. Alright, have a good day.